You're always there, answering the calls, replying to the messages, offering your time, your energy, your presence. You show up, not just in body, but in soul. You stretch yourself thin across 100 small moments, thinking it's love, thinking it's duty, thinking it's what makes you good. But one day, you stop. You don't announce it. You don't rage. You simply become unavailable. And suddenly, the world shifts. People who once leaned on you start to wobble. Silence grows in places where noise once ruled. The invitations slow. The demands thin out. Some call it peace. Others call it abandonment. But you start to notice something unnerving. Reality reacts to your absence more dramatically than it ever acknowledged your presence. Isn't it strange? You were always there, constant, reliable, known. But it wasn't until you withdrew that the world truly noticed you. Why does absence scream louder than presence? Why does silence echo louder than your words ever did? Perhaps the real question is more unsettling. Were you ever seen at all? Or were you only useful? We live in a culture that praises availability. Availability to serve, to soothe, to support, to show up. But at what cost? When does kindness become self-erasure? When does connection become a contract written in invisible ink? One that only binds you. And when you finally stop being available, not out of bitterness, but out of awakening, why does everything begin to change? What is it about your no that echoes louder than all your yeses? Perhaps the answer lies deeper, in the architecture of human psychology, in the shadows of ancient philosophies. Perhaps this isn't about people at all, but about power, perception, and the illusions we're taught to live inside. Let's go deeper. Because the moment you stop being available is the moment the truth begins to surface. You've been conditioned, long before you were aware of it, to believe that your worth is tied to your usefulness. It began in childhood, subtle as breath, the smile you received when you were helpful, the cold distance when you weren't, praise for being easy, for not needing much, for being there when others couldn't handle their own storms. Slowly, you became fluent in a silent language. To be loved is to be available. But beneath this surface lies something far more insidious. Carl Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to meet the expectations of the world. You've worn yours well, reliable, empathic, strong. But over time, the mask fuses with the skin, and you forget it was ever a mask. You begin to believe that to disappear, even momentarily, is to become irrelevant, invisible. Nietzsche once warned that those who constantly serve others risk losing their ability to serve themselves. A life spent in constant outward availability is not noble. It is erasure in slow motion. You become a ghost long before you vanish. Society reinforces this. Modern culture romanticizes the self-sacrificing friend, the ever-present partner, the tireless worker. And yet, when you finally collapse, who catches you? The same people who praised your availability often vanish in the face of your exhaustion. Why? Because availability is transactional. It creates an illusion of connection, but it's often dependency in disguise. You were never just being kind. You were surviving. You were navigating a world that rewards self-abandonment and punishes boundaries. But that world is built on fear. Fear of being unloved, unneeded, unchosen. This isn't about social dynamics. This is about the existential dilemma. If I'm not available, do I still matter? And that terrifying question is what keeps you trapped until you begin to see the consequences. The most dangerous prisons are the ones with invisible walls. When your identity is constructed around availability, you become a character in everyone else's story, but never the author of your own. Slowly, subtly, the cost accumulates. You say yes when you want to say no. You answer messages that drain your spirit. You pick up calls you dread, not because you care, but because you can't not. And over time, this repetition of self-betrayal rewires your brain. Neuroplasticity ensures that what you do repeatedly becomes what you believe. And what you believe becomes who you are. So you stop trusting your instincts. You become addicted to being needed. Your worth becomes externalized. A Pavlovian loop forms. Attention becomes validation, and silence becomes rejection. Your nervous system learns to fear stillness. But this addiction comes at a brutal cost. Your own goals begin to rot on the vine. Your inner world atrophies. You no longer know what you want, only what others expect of you. You smile on the outside, but your inner life feels hollow, even foreign. It's not burnout. It's something deeper, a kind of spiritual disintegration. Cognitive dissonance creeps in. You begin to resent the very people you keep helping. You feel angry, but guilty for feeling angry. You want to disappear, but fear what will happen if you do. The trap tightens. And yet, the world keeps taking, because you keep offering. This is the silent machinery of emotional capitalism, where time, energy, and care are currencies constantly extracted from you, not maliciously, but habitually, systemically. You don't even realize the extent of your captivity until one day you do the unthinkable. You go silent, and everything around you trembles. But why? Why does your absence cause such a ripple? The answer lies not just in behavior, but in power. And once you grasp this power, you can reclaim everything. The first act of rebellion is terrifyingly simple. You stop responding, not to punish, not to provoke, but to observe. And what you begin to witness is nothing short of revelatory. Suddenly, the flood of messages becomes a trickle. The people who once demanded your time disappear into the very silence they once feared. The invitations, the check-ins, the just wondering if you're okay, they stop. Not immediately, but eventually. And in their absence, something holy begins to emerge. Space. You feel it in your bones, an unfamiliar quiet. Not the silence of loneliness, but the silence of sovereignty. Because availability was never just a behavior, it was a signal, a surrender, a subconscious message. You are allowed to take from me. I will not resist. But now, you resist. Jean-Paul Sartre believed that freedom is found in the refusal to be defined by others. And your refusal, to always answer, to always show up, to always fix, becomes an act of existential defiance. You begin to unhook yourself from the social matrix that demanded your submission. You stop being the reliable background character. You step forward as the protagonist. This shift isn't easy. You will feel guilt. You will feel fear. You will question whether you are being selfish, cruel, or cold. But those feelings, they are echoes of the old programming dying inside you. You are not being cruel. You are breaking the contract of your own exploitation. Aldous Huxley once said that the deepest form of slavery is the one we mistake for love. And so, to stop being available is not to stop loving. It is to start loving yourself. This is not abandonment. This is emergence. And as you rise, the world begins to reshape itself around your new gravity. But there's still one truth left. One final blinding realization that explains why everything changes the moment you vanish. Here it is, the final, brutal, liberating truth. When you stop being available, you stop being easy to control. That's the axis upon which the entire illusion turns. Your availability was never just about kindness or connection. It was about predictability. People knew where to find you, knew how to pull you back. Your yes became a reflex, your presence a given. And in that pattern, you were tamed. But the moment you choose not to show up, not to reply, not to explain, you become unpredictable. And unpredictable people are powerful. Viktor Frankl wrote that in the space between stimulus and response lies our power to choose. And in that choice lies our freedom. Your absence is not silence, it is choice. It is the refusal to perform, the refusal to self-sacrifice for conditional affection, the refusal to live as a utility. You become something frightening to those who depended on your obedience. Free. They don't miss you. They miss what you did for them. And this is where your heartbreak becomes your awakening. Because it reveals what was real and what was performance. But it also opens the door to something more sacred than approval. Alignment. When you stop being available to everyone, you become available to truth, to clarity, to purpose. You begin to hear the quiet voice that was drowned out by all the noise, the voice of who you were before the world taught you to be useful. And that voice does not beg to be chosen. It chooses itself. So the next time you wonder why everything changes when you go quiet, remember this: the world doesn't shift because you disappeared. It shifts because, for the first time, you appeared, not as a mirror, but as a flame. And flames don't chase. They burn, they illuminate, they reveal, and they never apologize for the heat.